They poured wine on him in front of 200 guests, calling him unworthy, clueless, and out of place. The room fell silent for a moment, the kind of silence that holds its breath before judgment takes over. A few guests gasped, a few snickered, others lifted their phones, ready to record whatever drama was unfolding. No one there knew that the man they mocked, the quiet man in the simple suit standing near the back, was the investor behind the entire deal being celebrated that night. They didn't know he owned the company that had just signed an $800 million contract with the very woman insulting him. But life has a way of revealing truth at the exact moment people least expect it. It had all begun with good intentions. The event was supposed to be a celebration of success, ambition, and new beginnings. People arrived wearing diamonds and silk, posing near the gold-trimmed banners and congratulating each other for achievements they hadn't even contributed to. The woman of the night, Vanessa Hart, was a rising business star, at least, that's how she introduced herself to everyone. She was sharp, charismatic, and famously intimidating. Her company had just secured an unprecedented deal, one that would change her trajectory forever. She believed she had earned it through her brilliance and networking. What she didn't know, what no one knew, was that the architect behind the deal wasn't the board members, or the lawyers, or the smiling executives. It was the quiet man she would soon embarrass. His name was Marcus. He wasn't the kind of person people immediately noticed. He wore clothes that were neat but never flashy. He preferred listening over speaking. His confidence was quiet, not loud. And in a world that tends to confuse noise with power, that made him invisible. Marcus had built his empire by staying in the shadows, supporting talented people without demanding recognition. He believed in potential more than fame. And he had believed in Vanessa, at least until that night. The evening had been moving smoothly until an unfortunate accident changed everything. A waiter carrying a tray of glasses bumped into Vanessa. A splash of red wine stained her expensive silver gown. It wasn't much, just a small stain. But her anger ignited instantly. She whirled around and scanned the room for someone to blame. And her gaze landed on Marcus, who happened to be standing behind the waiter. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't care. She assumed the worst, and loudly made it clear. "You," she snapped, pointing a perfectly manicured finger at him. "Do you even know where you are? This isn't some street party. Learn to respect people if you want to be near them." Marcus froze, confused. He opened his mouth to explain, but she cut him off. "You don't belong here," she continued, her voice loud enough for half the room to hear. "Look at your suit. Did you think this was a charity event?" Laughter erupted. Not genuine laughter, more like the kind that erupts when people want to appear aligned with the powerful. Phones lifted. Someone whispered, "He's probably a staff member trying to sneak in." Another voice chimed in, "Or some broke nobody." Then came the moment no one expected. Vanessa picked up a glass of wine from the table beside her, stepped forward, and poured it over Marcus's shoulder. The splash echoed like a slap across the room. "You're unworthy," she hissed. A collective gasp swept through the hall. Even those who disliked Marcus felt the cruelty had gone too far. But the damage was done. The videos were already recording. In that moment, something shifted in Marcus's eyes. Not anger, not rage, something colder, final. He didn't say a single word. He didn't protest, didn't defend himself. He simply looked at Vanessa with an expression she couldn't interpret, an expression that made her suddenly uncomfortable without knowing why. Marcus quietly walked out of the room. And the fallout began before anyone even realized he'd moved. The executives watching the scene felt a jolt of panic. A few of them recognized Marcus, not as the owner, but as someone important they had been instructed to treat with respect. They didn't know the true extent of his influence, but they knew enough to fear the consequences. Two of them hurried after him, calling his name, but he didn't stop. His departure sent a ripple of unease through the staff, and soon the whispers began. Who was that man? Why did the board members look scared? Did Vanessa mess up something big? Inside the ballroom, Vanessa continued smiling, confident she had displayed her authority. But as the minutes passed, she noticed people drifting away from her. Their expressions had changed. Some were wide-eyed, some avoided looking at her altogether. Then her assistant rushed to her side, pale as chalk. "You need to step outside," the assistant whispered urgently. "Why?" Vanessa frowned. "It's Marcus Hale." The name meant nothing to her. "Who?" she scoffed. Her assistant swallowed hard. "The primary investor. The man who funded the entire deal. The man whose signature approved the contract. The owner behind the parent company. That was him." It felt like the ground tilted beneath her. Her knees nearly buckled. She replayed the scene in her mind, horror growing with every detail. The wine, the insults, the humiliation. Her assistant added, "The board is panicking. Without his final approval, the deal can disappear." Vanessa pushed through the crowd, suddenly desperate, heart racing. She reached the hallway and spotted Marcus near the exit, wiping wine from his sleeve with a napkin someone had handed him. He looked calm, too calm. "Marcus," she called out, breathless. "Wait, please." He turned slowly. His expression remained unreadable, but there was no warmth left, not even polite indifference. "Ms. Hart," he said, his voice steady. "Enjoy your evening." "You don't understand," she stammered. "It was a misunderstanding. You thought I was beneath you," he finished for her. "And that was enough for you to treat me the way you did." She opened her mouth but found no words. What could she even say? Marcus continued, "Character is revealed not in how we treat those above us, but those we believe are below us." He began walking away. She grabbed at the air, helpless. "Please, can we talk about the deal?" "You talked enough already," Marcus replied without turning. He stepped into his car and left. By the next morning, the story had gone viral, not the real story, but the recorded humiliation. Millions viewed the clip. The internet labeled Marcus, the man who got publicly shamed for nothing. Sympathy poured in. People condemned Vanessa for mistreating someone she assumed was powerless. But power doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it whispers, and changes everything quietly. At 10:14 a.m. the next day, an official statement was released. The contract with Hart Industries has been terminated effective immediately. Reporters swarmed Vanessa. Investors abandoned her. Sponsors withdrew support. Inside her office, she stared blankly at her phone as the consequences unfolded. Her empire, which had taken years to build, was collapsing in hours. And all because she couldn't control a moment of arrogance. Marcus, meanwhile, didn't celebrate or speak publicly. He declined every interview request. He wasn't interested in destroying her life, only in protecting the values he believed in. Respect, humility, integrity. He allowed her company the option to reapply for partnership after a mandatory leadership restructuring. It wasn't revenge, it was accountability. Days later, Vanessa requested a private meeting, this time with humility, not pride. She walked into a modest conference room, no cameras, no makeup, no glamour. Just vulnerability. "Marcus," she began, struggling to keep her voice steady. "I'm sorry. Deeply. I acted out of ego and insecurity. I judged you based on appearance, and I humiliated someone who didn't deserve it. You have every right to walk away, but I want to do better. I want to learn." Marcus studied her carefully. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then finally, "Growth starts with acknowledging who we are when no one is watching," he said. "Do better, not for the contract, but for yourself." The meeting ended with no guarantees. No promises. Just a chance, for both of them, to choose a different path. Weeks passed. Vanessa began volunteering at community leadership programs. She took courses in empathy-led management. She rebuilt her reputation not through publicity, but through action. Slowly, people noticed. Slowly, trust returned. Months later, Marcus reviewed a revised proposal from her company. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. Transparent. Grounded in humility. He signed it. And this time, when they stood together on a stage to announce the partnership, there was no arrogance, no ego, no pretense. Just two people who had learned something powerful, that what truly defines us is not the deals we make, or the wealth we display, but the humanity we show, even when we think no one important is watching. Because sometimes, the person we least expect, is the one who holds the key to everything. In a world full of quick judgments and louder-than-life egos, this story reminds us to pause before assuming, to listen before speaking, to respect before rising. Kindness costs nothing. Humility builds everything. And the people we underestimate today might be the ones who change our lives tomorrow. Every story has a moment where everything turns. For Vanessa, it was a glass of wine. For Marcus, it was a lesson in grace. For everyone watching, it was a reminder: never let arrogance speak louder than your character. Never forget that true power doesn't need to be announced, it reveals itself in the quietest moments. And sometimes, it walks out of the room without a word, leaving behind a silence that changes everything.